After I was reborn as a mosquito, the first thing I did was cross the ocean, fly to Neon Country, storm into its parliament, and just fight. And the neon people I bit, they either got kicked out of bed by their wives at night, or lost all their hair overnight. All because I, reborn as a mosquito, carry venom that can cause impotence in men, and as long as I bite enough people, I can even unlock talents and upgrade skills in the system. The next day, Neon Country's parliament and 100 of its members had their impotence incident make international headlines. Instantly, the people of Neon Country panicked and started frantically buying mosquito repellent and coils. Meanwhile, the Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department went on TV
Red Country
to make a
Broadcasting
statement. Television. A PES 4K1. Regarding this incident, we are conducting a full investigation. We will definitely give the public an explanation. Please, everyone, remain calm. That mosquito's activity is confined to the Parliament building. We have already set up an inescapable trap there, using live bait, ready to capture it. But at that moment, in front of a giant TV screen, I was silently watching the news on it. They're all lying in wait inside the Parliament? Perfect. Then I'll go somewhere else tonight. Soon, under cover of night, I arrived at Neon Defense University. Silently, I entered the boys' dormitory. I saw on the doorplate the words Applied Nuclear Physics Major. I immediately grinned. Ha, so they're trying to secretly develop nukes, huh? I'll bite you all to death. Immediately, I started frantically biting the sleeping Neon students, one after another. Finish one dorm room, move on to the next. Looking at the head, 7109407 looking at the head. The points keep increasing. The points keep increasing. Light up with excitement. These Defense University students, while each isn't as valuable as a parliament member, there are so many of them that the total points are skyrocketing. Right then, a thought suddenly popped into my head. What if I bit the Japanese emperor? How many points would that add? Just as I was thinking that, a sign for a dormitory area suddenly appeared before me. Dormitory for Chinese language majors. Instantly, the corners of my mouth curled into an evil grin. If all the Japanese students in a whole building got ED, but only the ones studying Chinese remained perfectly fine, what would happen? Thinking of this, I turned around and left the area. As the sky slowly brightened, I successfully bit over 800 students and got over 9,000 points. Then I glanced at the system list of upgradable items. I found the cheapest one, Basic Body Enhancement, costs 5,000 points. This skill can make your body as hard as steel. With enough points to max it out and combine it with a maxed absolute speed, you could even achieve the effect of the droplet from the three-body problem. Just by high-speed collisions, you could destroy everything. Thinking of this, I exchanged for Basic Body Enhancement without hesitation. At the same time, in a dorm at the Defense University, a student named Okado Morimori looked at the huge, red swelling on his arm. He felt like the sky was falling. Oh no, I didn't get it up this morning. Did I really hit the jackpot? I need to go test it right away. But when he brought his girlfriend to the hotel, he found the place was already packed. Seeing this scene, the hotel owner was stunned. What the? It's only 8 in the morning. You young people have way too much energy. Okado Morimori, being rich, threw 100,000 yen in cash at the owner and took his girlfriend upstairs. But less than a minute later, Okado Morimori was back at the front desk. Owner, check out. The hotel owner was confused again. Didn't you just check in? At this moment, Okado Morimori was utterly devastated. His girlfriend simply said, Okado-kun, we're breaking up. Then, without a shred of attachment, she turned and left. When Okado Morimori returned to the Defense University, he heard a chorus of wails coming from inside the dorm building. A chorus of wails was coming from inside. A chorus of wails was coming from inside. After asking around, I found out that almost the entire dorm building was wiped out overnight. Only the students majoring in Chinese weren't bitten by mosquitoes. So, the Defense University soon started spreading a legend. Learning Chinese can prevent mosquito bites. In no time, all the male students flooded into the Chinese department classroom. When Professor Matsushita Morisa walked into the classroom, he was instantly shocked and broke out in a cold sweat. The usually empty classroom was packed wall to wall today. They were even hanging from the ceiling fan. At that moment, Professor Matsushita Morisa was completely stunned. What are you all doing here? The next second, thousands of people shouted in unison, Teacher, we're here to learn Chinese. I love Chinese. I'll die if I don't learn Chinese. As the news about over 800 students hit international headlines, netizens around the world were laughing their heads off. Who knew a single mosquito could push Japan to such extremes? I wonder how traumatized the Japanese people are. Meanwhile, Japan's top brass also announced their latest decision. They decided to dispatch 400 planes at 4 a.m. on April 1st to the Saikyo region for a full-scale mosquito extermination. Seeing this news, I gasped in shock. April 1st is tomorrow. tomorrow. Although my steel body now can resist physical impacts, it can't immunize me against chemical attacks. If I want to 10,000 points an immunity to insecticide in the system, it would cost 10,000 points. But right now, I only have 4,000 points left, which means, before 5 AM tomorrow, I must get my hands on another 6,000 points, or I'm definitely dead. But besides the school, where else has a dense concentration of people? Just then, I had a sudden brainstorm. That's it. The military. There are 2 military forces in Saikyo right now. One belongs to Japan's self-defense forces. The other is the US forces stationed at Yokota Air Base. After thinking for a moment, I decided to target Japan's self-defense forces first. After all, I shouldn't start off by making so many enemies. I'll finish off Japan first, then deal with America. No one's getting away anyway. Immediately, I hitched a ride to the self-defense forces, 1st Division barracks. The soldiers, having trained all day, were just exhausted and asleep. Seeing this, I didn't hesitate. I charged into the tents and went on a rampage. After biting dozens of soldiers, I arrived at a large courtyard at the heart of the camp. Looking at the entrance, with its heavy patrol presence, my eyes instantly lit up. With security this tight, whoever lives here has to be at least a colonel. I quickly slipped past the guards and entered the living room. The first thing I saw was an ornately decorated command sword. This is definitely a big fish. If I can get a bite of him, that's probably 1,000 points right there. So, using the dim moonlight, I headed straight for the bedroom. The next second, I saw a Japanese man sleeping soundly in bed. I carefully flew onto his arm, but just as I was about to bite and inject my toxin, I suddenly sensed danger. Wait, his pulse is beating way too fast. Oh no, he's pretending to sleep. Realizing the trap, I immediately took off to escape. But then, with a rustling sound, the surroundings instantly had a mosquito net drop down, blocking my way out. Yoshi, I had a feeling all day that something was off, so I took precautions tonight. Didn't expect there really was a mosquito. General Okuban Hikawa had a cold glare in his eyes. In his hand was an electric remote control. Seeing this, my heart sank. I was careless. I underestimated this Japanese officer's level of caution. Unfortunately for him, a mere mosquito net won't hold me. I immediately dove and accelerated, planning to use my tough body to break right through the net. However, after a sizzling sound, I fell onto the bedsheet, smoking all over. You gotta be kidding me. Who electrifies their mosquito net? My mind raced. Trying to force my way out now is definitely not an option. Looks like I'll have to play dead here and wait for this Japanese guy to open the net. Then I'll fly out in an instant with my steel-like body. Even if I lie here and let you hit me, can you really kill me? But who would have thought this guy was such a sneaky bastard? He straight up pulled out from his pants a half-meter tall can of insecticide. Seeing this, my whole mosquito brain froze. Holy crap, how did you fit something that big in there? However, just when I thought my mosquito life was about to end, Okamoto Hikawa put down the insecticide in his hand. Instead, he pulled out a glass jar and trapped me inside it. Looking at me in the jar, his face immediately broke into a sinister grin. I wonder if this is the virus-carrying mosquito. I'll hand it over to the Academy of Sciences tomorrow for verification. With that, he casually placed the jar on the table and turned to go into the bathroom. He turned and went into the bathroom and started treating himself. But when he finished and returned to the bedroom, he was instantly stunned. There, on the glass jar, was a tiny hole, and the mosquito inside was long gone. At that moment, Okamoto Hikawa's understanding was completely shattered. He couldn't help but slap himself hard. Damn it, how could a tiny mosquito shatter glass? Meanwhile, having made my escape, I didn't dare stop for a second and flew out of the military camp. Holy crap, that was close. I didn't get enough points and almost got finished off there. Looks like I can't stay here for now. I'll have to change cities and play it safe and level up first. Immediately, I hurried to the nearest train station. Before 5 o'clock, I boarded a train heading southeast. At that moment, a cold glint flashed in my eyes. Saikyo, I'll be back. Next time I come, it will be your doom. A few hours later, the entire city of Saikyo was filled with the pungent smell of insecticide. At the police headquarters, Koji Goshiro was laughing maniacally. That mosquito is definitely dead now. But then his phone suddenly rang. Sir, it's bad. 100 soldiers from the 1st Division were bitten by mosquitoes last night and infected with the Yangwei virus. The US forces stationed in Nippon are now preparing to withdraw. Hearing this, Koji Goshiro's face instantly turned pale, and this news quickly made international headlines. In no time, the comment sections of major media outlets were flooded with a photo of a mosquito. Heaven has sent the mosquito. the Mosquito God shall rise. Go, Mosquito God, wipe out Nippon. Meanwhile, on the other side, completely unaware, I had already arrived in Yokohama. As soon as I got off, I rushed non-stop, straight into the Yokosuka Naval Base. This base, as the cradle of the old Nippon Navy, is now also the core of the Maritime Self-Defense Force. Every officer and soldier inside is an inheritor of militarism, whether it's tampering with textbooks or whitewashing the history of aggression. Their fingerprints are all over it. You could say it's the perfect testing ground for me to fulfill my anti-Nippon dream. With my steel-like body, I smashed through the window, and these guys were sleeping like pigs, snoring loudly. Seeing this, my heart grew fiery. You foolish bastards, your mosquito grandpa is here. Then I started harvesting points from one dorm room to the next. But when I reached dorm 404, I froze instantly. Who came up with this? Hanging this thing by the bed? Talk about a strong will to survive. Talk about a strong will to survive. Inside the barracks, above the beds of two individuals, there now hung brand new Zhonghua dictionaries. It seems the legend that learning Zhonghua prevents mosquito bites has reached this naval base too. Alright then, I'll let you two off. But the other two weren't so lucky. I flew up and on their arms, I went chomp chomp. As the sun rose the next day, the officers and soldiers in all four barracks had all been bitten by me. My system points reached 11,000. After successfully exchanging for the insecticide immunity talent, I quietly left the Yokosuka Naval Base. Meanwhile, in an office at the Saikyo Metropolitan Police Department, Ko-Air Woo-Tsilong had just convinced the U.S. forces stationed in Japan to stand down. He was about to throw a grand victory banquet for the anti-mosquito operation, but the next second, he received news of the attack on Yokosuka Naval Base. Instantly, his face looked like he'd swallowed a fly. Damn it, you cursed mosquito, I'll fight you to the death. At the same time, back at the Yokosuka Naval Base, reporters swarmed in. They all asked those two soldiers how they managed to escape unharmed. One of them pointed directly at the Zhonghua dictionary hanging by his bed. My girlfriend is from the National Defense University. She said a legend is going around campus that learning Zhonghua prevents mosquito bites, so she mailed me a Zhonghua dictionary. She said if I didn't hang it by my bed, she'd break up with me. Wait. Kishibe Nakarai. Why do you have the exact same dictionary? You bastard. Don't tell me Kasai Nariko sent you one too. With that, the two immediately started brawling. Seeing the interview scene turning into a gossip fest, the reporters hastily left this troublesome place. As this interview aired, soon, bookstores across Japan had long lines forming. Some even offered a sky-high price of $1 million. And due to copyright issues, Japanese printing houses couldn't print Zhonghua dictionaries themselves. They could only import them from Zhonghua. In no time, Zhonghua's overseas exporters were overjoyed. Tons and tons of Zhonghua dictionaries were shipped to Japan. It became Japan's best-selling book of all time. The simultaneous Japanese higher-ups, upon learning the news, were instantly furious. They immediately and loudly announced the formation of a special anti-mosquito task force. They allocated 30 billion yen to hire Detective Sakamoto as the task force leader. This Sakamoto indeed had unique ideas. After reviewing the previous data, he proposed a viewpoint that no one had ever considered. This mosquito first attacked the Fruit Association, biting 111 people. The second time it attacked the Defense University, biting 888 people. The third time it attacked the 1st Division, biting 100 people. This attack, on the Yokosuka Naval Base, bit another 666 people, bringing the total to 1,720 patients with Yanwei disease. However, among them, only students of the Zhonghua language system, and those who hung Zhonghua dictionaries were unaffected. This indicates that all of this mosquito's activities were premeditated. As soon as these words were spoken, the entire room was shocked. Are you saying that Zhonghua has already mastered the technology to control mosquito behavior? But at this moment, Saga Maruto mysteriously waved his hand. Actually, there's another possibility. Think about it. If Zhonghua and our little Japan get into a fight, who would be the biggest beneficiary? Exactly. It's the United States. As soon as these words were spoken, Yuga Marinoto suddenly saw the light. Indeed, if I were a high-ranking official in Zhonghua, I would never leave. Such an obvious flaw. A move like this, diverting trouble east and throwing the Asia-Pacific into chaos, completely fits the United States' cunning methods. What a brilliant move of using someone else to do the dirty work. And just as the enemy was still discussing how to proceed with the next step, as the one who started it all, I am leisurely sunbathing at this moment. The police department must have me on their radar by now, so from here on out, my way of operating must change to avoid going to places as crowded as before. There's only one solution: attack high-status Japanese individuals. Thinking of this, as my eyes gleamed, a decision formed in my mind. Japanese cabinet minister Kohei Saiko. This person is a leading figure in pushing for the revision of history textbooks. From his investments in Zhonghua, he made huge profits. Yet when Zhonghua was in trouble, he didn't contribute a single cent. And and even kicked Huawei while it was down, would surely yield a large amount of system points. So I immediately found a household that loved watching TV, and settled in. Soon, I saw news that Kobe Psycho was about to visit the Yasukuni Shrine for a worship ceremony. At that moment, a greedy glint instantly flashed in my eyes. Tokyo, your mosquito grandpa is back. At this moment, Xiaobai Zizi was standing in front of the shrine, giving a speech to the media that glorified the invasion. Little did he know, in an inconspicuous corner nearby, I, starving and thirsty, had been waiting for a long time. Just as his speech reached its climax, I flashed by like lightning. Xiaobai Zizi suddenly felt an itch on his neck, but didn't pay it any mind. After all, this was Saikyo. Its security far surpassed anywhere else. And right then, the system prompt chimed in perfectly. Bite successful. Points increased by 100,000. Hearing this, I was instantly so shocked. I was stunned. Oh my god, a cabinet minister is worth 100,000 points? How much would the emperor be worth then? Immediately, I spent 80,000 points to exchange for a speed skill. Speed, when activated, speed increases 5-fold for 1 hour. Cooldown can only be used once per day, with a 1-hour cooldown after use. Then, looking at the crowd below the stage, my eyes lit up. You have to understand, those attending this kind of event are all prominent, right-wing politicians and representatives of the Zaibatsu. Such a great opportunity couldn't be missed. Without hesitation, I activated the speed skill and turned into a blur. I started going crazy, biting everyone. It wasn't until the 19th bite that someone noticed something was wrong. Why is my neck so itchy? I think a mosquito just bit me. As soon as this was said, the entire crowd instantly realized something terrible had happened. They hurriedly called an emergency halt to the worship activity. Everyone immediately went to the hospital for a physical examination. When the results came out, the organizers instantly felt like the sky had fallen, including Xiaobai Zizi. 20 cabinet members and Zaibatsu representatives had all tested positive, and this news quickly shot to the top of the trending searches again. All of a sudden, every household hung up a flower planting dictionary. Everyone started learning flower planting language. However, was hindered by setbacks. Their learning. Obviously not fast enough. 10 NIP. In just 3 days, 10 NIP attacks. Another 300 plus people were taken out. 10 were successively attacked. 10 MI. When Sakagami Maruto marked all the attack sites on a map, he discovered this mosquito's movement pattern was completely random, as if it was toying with them. This time, it even pulled a U-turn and came back, returning to Saikyo. Now, Yutaka Marayano, who was already frustrated, broke out in a cold sweat. He immediately ordered heavy guards for all key government sites, and arranged numerous expensive laser mosquito zappers along the routes. Little did they know, what they were dealing with was a mosquito, well-versed in the art of war. Everything they were seeing was just my fate. At this moment in Hiroshima City, the First Lady was shamelessly attending an ocean rights protection summit, and her accompanying bodyguards were each armed with an electric fly swatter. Whenever they spotted any unidentified flying object in the air, they'd zap it with the fly swatter immediately. However, what they never dreamed of was that, right now, a sneaky mosquito was crawling on the ground. You're all guarding against airborne threats, so what if I crawl on the ground? How will you deal with that, sir? Just as the First Lady's speech was halfway through, her body stiffened. She felt something crawling up under her skirt. She almost broke out into an awkward dance on the spot, but she didn't pay it much mind. After all, as everyone knows, IT person. However, the next day when she went to the bathroom, she was completely stunned. She discovered that all her hair had fallen out. Upon hearing the news, Yutaka Marunoto felt as if the sky had collapsed. The First Lady going bald was no small matter. As the Prime Minister's wife, she represented the etiquette and image of Japan. Yet, a group of experts at the Metropolitan Police Department racked their brains and still couldn't figure out how that mosquito managed to cover nearly 800 kilometers from Saikyo to Hiroshima in less than half a day. It wasn't until they spotted my figure in the airport surveillance footage that everyone present was utterly stunned. A mosquito actually knows how to take a plane. That's beyond ridiculous. It's ridiculous to the extreme. Immediately, Yutaka Marunoto ordered a news blackout, but he couldn't stop his foolish teammates. After going bald, the First Lady panicked and immediately told her close friend, Princess Keiko, as is well known, the Japanese royal family, to maintain pure bloodlines, practices inbreeding, resulting in everyone being a bit dim-witted. Before long, the entire Japanese populace knew about it. In an instant, both men and women fell into utter panic. Immigration offices in major cities were packed. A simple ticket off the island cost at least 3 million yen. At this moment, within the Saikyo Metropolitan Police Department, Yutaka Marunoto, who had been in office for less than a month, was replaced by 1st Division Lieutenant General Okanban Hikawa. That's the same unlucky fellow who once tried to trap me in a glass bottle. Upon taking office, he immediately issued several new orders. First, install laser mosquito zappers at airports and train stations nationwide to prevent mosquitoes from using transport transportation. Second, have every city form emergency pest control squads, equipped with flamethrowers, electromagnetic nets, and other weaponry. But the most jaw-dropping thing is the third policy announced nationwide. The government will publicly purchase mosquito corpses. What? Purchase? 1.5 million yen per caddy. 1.5 million yen, converted, that's about the same price as silver. The policy was announced nationwide. As soon as the order was issued, the entire populace went completely crazy. Impotence? Who cares? Baldness? Who cares? As long as they get paid, they'd even risk their lives. In an instant, Japan was swept up in a nationwide mosquito-catching frenzy, and at that moment, I saw Okita Nishikawa in the news, and immediately felt murderous intent surge within me. Talk about a small world, huh? Right then, I immediately checked the systems exchange store. The Lord of 10,000 Insects requires 800,000 points. The zombie virus requires 1 million points. Then I looked at my own, meager 500,000 something points, and was immediately stumped. If things continue like this, to exchange for these two talents, it would take at least half a year. I was just pondering how to improve efficiency when I saw a wild mosquito fly right past my eyes. This scene instantly made my eyes light up. What if I had a bunch of underlings to help me collect points? Wouldn't that be taking off right then and there? At that moment, an unprecedented heavy fog engulfed Saikyo. The entire city also experienced a massive power outage. Now, not only could the planes spraying insecticide not take off, but even the laser mosquito zappers were rendered useless. Seeing this situation, the newly appointed Okita Nishikawa immediately sensed things were going badly. This is practically the perfect environment for mosquitoes, but Seiko Maruto, standing beside him, remained completely calm. Don't worry, I've already installed an extra-large laser mosquito cannon on the Saikyo Tower. When the time comes, I'll kill that mosquito right in front of everyone. Seeing what was displayed on the screen, that huge thing, Okabe Hikawa was instantly frozen in shock for a good 2.5 minutes. Damn, that's huge. A normal laser mosquito zapper is only about the size of a kettle. The one Seiko Maruto had custom-made is over 4 meters tall. With one shot from this thing, forget mosquitoes, even an aircraft carrier could probably be pierced. However, Okabe Hikawa was still very doubtful. Would that mosquito really come and walk right into the trap? Yet, upon hearing this, Seiko Maruto wore a face full of confidence. Of course, the Metropolitan Police Department has issued a total of 44 new regulations, all targeting that mosquito. Its current situation must be very difficult. So now, with such a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, it will definitely choose to attack the police headquarters. Sure enough, the moment he finished speaking, a piercing alarm sounded in the room. On the surveillance feed, countless small black dots were gathering towards Shijing City. Seeing this, Okabe Hikawa was instantly dumbfounded. Baka, what the hell is this? Could it be all the mosquitoes from the waters within hundreds of miles of Shijing are here? Immediately, he immediately issued a high-level disaster warning. The next second, all the citizens of Shijing were awakened by the air raid sirens. Looking utterly confused, they came out onto the streets. What's happening? Is it an earthquake? Or did Godzilla attack? Only when they saw the countless black dots gradually approaching through the mist did everyone realize in horror that they were mosquitoes. The Mosquito God has brought its army to end the world. For a moment, screams and cries echoed everywhere. Everyone was terrified, locking themselves inside their homes. Meanwhile, armored vehicles rolled into the city. However, Shijing was full of skyscrapers. They fired a few rounds, missed the mosquitoes, but took down plenty of buildings. Seeing this, I nearly laughed myself silly. What a bunch of idiots. Well, I'm off to play somewhere else. Right then, I led my swarm straight to attack the cabinet. When the swarm passed through earlier, we didn't attack. After all, some neon civilians might have been innocent, but the cabinet officials? Not a single decent one among them. Soon, the mosquito army entered the cabinet office. Seeing that dark, swarming mass, the politicians were scared out of their minds. The bodyguards, though armed with electric fly swatters, were utterly useless against millions of mosquitoes. Instantly, the cabinet office was filled with howls. Soon, over a dozen officials who had visited that controversial shrine were down. Some of them oversaw education, altering and whitewashing Neon's history of aggression in textbooks. By the time Okamoto Hikawa rushed to the scene, the cabinet office was already engulfed by an endless swarm of mosquitoes. Seeing this, Okamoto Hikawa saw black. This is a disaster. The prime minister will have my hide. Yet, Sakamaruto behind him remained completely calm. He even kept waving to the reporters as he walked. Okamoto Hikawa saw this and was instantly furious. Sakamaruto, look at the mess you've made. As soon as he said this, everyone present immediately recognized who he was. Instantly, countless cameras swung toward him. The next moment, he slowly raised his hand and pointed to the sky. I am the 15th generation Onmyoji of the Saka family. I call upon Amaterasu to slay the mosquitoes. With this invocation, a blinding light suddenly shone from the Saikyo Tower. It shot precisely into the heart of the mosquito swarm. In an instant, a large part of the swarm exploded in midair. Seeing this, Sakamoto immediately gave a confident smile to the cameras. The mosquito leader is dead. You can all rest easy. And the moment his voice faded away, the hundreds of millions of mosquitoes truly scattered like a receding tide. The entire city of Psycheo quickly returned to peace. This scene instantly left everyone present utterly stunned. 2.5 minutes later, a large number of scientists arrived on the scene. They immediately collected that huge pile of mosquito corpses for testing. Incredibly, from one of the badly charred mosquitoes, they extracted a virus that could cause erectile dysfunction and baldness. In that moment, Sakamoto directly became a hero in everyone's eyes. Soon, the imperial family specially held a grand medal ceremony for him. The emperor himself bestowed upon him the Order of the Golden Chrysanthemum, symbolizing the highest honor, along with a staggering reward of 40 billion yen. However, as night fell, this hero who, by day, was the lofty hero who fought mosquitoes, was now reverently prostrating himself on the ground. He was kowtowing towards a shadow in the corner. Master, the task you assigned has been completed. As a beam of moonlight passed by, the figure of a mosquito slowly materialized within this quiet room. That's right. Actually, before I launched my first attack, I had already used my innate skill, mind control. I turned Zwagawantang into my servant. This skill can loyal to me. Remaining uses. Unfortunately, it can only be used twice in a lifetime. At first, my plan was simple. I'm wreaking havoc in Japan. I can't rely on myself forever. So I had to plant a spy early on. Someone who could keep me informed, with official, first-hand intelligence. And this clever, money-grubbing detective was the perfect choice. As for that dead mosquito, it was just a decoy. This sweep through Tokyo earned me over 600,000 points. But time isn't over yet. Immediately, I went straight to the system and spent 300,000 in the mall on the intelligence reduction virus. And the truth serum virus. Since I'm going to completely take down Japan, their scientists absolutely cannot be spared. Otherwise, sooner or later they'll develop a way to counter me. So, under the cover of night, I headed straight to the Japanese Academy of Sciences. A researcher was there, concentrating intently on writing code. I circled around him a few times, and he didn't react at all. So I immediately landed on his arm. Without hesitation, I began injecting various viruses. Impotence, plus intelligence reduction, plus truth serum. This triple whammy. I just wonder if these Japanese scientists can withstand it. After all that, I didn't stop, transforming into a ghost in the darkness at the academy, darting through every corner. Soon, a titan in the field of neon electronic engineering, Yazaki Mahaku, showed a reaction. Having just finished writing code, he stretched with satisfaction, thinking to himself that it was finally done. This stupid project is so boring, I'd rather go home and watch the new anime. But the next second, the thought uncontrollably spilled out of his mouth. At that moment, he panicked, hurriedly covering his mouth, trying to force himself to shut up. But the more nervous he got, the wild thoughts in his mind gushed out more and more, like a burst dam, overflowing uncontrollably. The supervisor is an idiot. His ideas are complete nonsense. Yumiko from the neighboring department is really pretty. Just don't know when her husband is going on a trip. Only then did he realize in horror that the entire academy had descended into chaos. Everyone was shouting loudly. Some were cursing their superiors. Some were loudly plotting to change jobs, and others even showed signs of intellectual regression, hugging instruments and giggling foolishly. And the situation at the academy soon reached the Tokyo Police Department. When they saw, on the surveillance footage, the red-eyed mosquito appear, everyone at the police department was dumbfounded. Could this be another virus-carrying mosquito? Immediately, Okabane Hikawa contacted Sageo Maruto, even offering a sky-high price of 500 billion yen to ask him to come out of retirement again. However, Sageo Maruto, always greedy for money, did not agree. Instead, he stated that this time, he didn't want a single cent, only wishing to participate in the election for Prime Minister of Neon. Upon hearing this, Okabane Hikawa was utterly stunned. Running for Prime Minister? How dare you? However, in order to resolve this crisis, Okabe Hikawa had no choice but to swallow his anger and state that this was an internal matter he would consider. Meanwhile, as the mastermind behind all this, I commanded my mosquito army to wreak havoc across Nippon. In no time, streets, shopping malls, residential areas, every corner was filled with the incessant buzzing of mosquitoes. But every time the authorities dispatched spray planes to exterminate them, the swarms would always vanish collectively at the first sign. This caused the entire nation of Nippon to fall into a state of panic. Factories shut down, schools closed, and the tourism industry completely collapsed. My goal in doing this was very clear: to force Nippon to bring Sagamaru out of retirement and then do everything possible to get him elected as prime minister, thereby gaining control over all of Nippon. Just when I thought everything would go according to my plan, Okabe Hikawa played Nippon's long-hidden final trump card. Suddenly, tens of millions of micro-drones took off from all over Nippon. These drones resembled dragonflies in shape and could fire infrared lasers, harmless to humans, precisely targeting mosquitoes within 50 meters. Furthermore, these dragonfly drones were also equipped with insecticides specifically for mosquito swarms. When encountering mosquitoes that couldn't be eliminated by either lasers or insecticide, the drones would approach their target and self-destruct. Soon, my mosquito army suffered unprecedented heavy losses. I was forced to halt my operations and go into hiding for the time being. Although the self-destruction of a single drone couldn't harm me, if enough of them piled on, I couldn't guarantee I'd survive. But if we want the plan to keep going, we'll need more points to exchange for high-level skills. Just then, a figure suddenly flashed through my mind. Right, the Emperor. How could I have forgotten such a prime target? However, the palace now must be equipped with countless high-tech defense facilities. Going there directly would be a death sentence. The only way is to force the Emperor out of the palace. Thinking of this, a sudden idea struck me. I directly avoided the dragonfly drones and arrived at the Yasukuni Shrine. The Yasukuni Shrine serves as the spiritual symbol of the Japanese imperial family. If an accident were to happen and the Emperor didn't show up immediately, the prestige would definitely take a serious hit. So, under my manipulation, soon, inside the Yasukuni Shrine, a raging fire broke out. I watched with satisfaction the soaring flames and chuckled inwardly. Burn it all down. What a noble deed. Give these war criminal memorial tablets a collective send-off as well. Under my satisfied gaze, countless tablets crackled and popped, turning to ashes in an instant. By the time the Emperor, having heard the news, arrived at the scene, the fire had already engulfed the entire Yasukuni Shrine. Faced with the numerous camera flashes from the media, the Emperor could only put on a pained and solemn expression, and hypocritically began to deliver a speech. However, just as the atmosphere reached its peak, dozens of dragonfly drones suddenly appeared in the sky. At first, including the Emperor, everyone paid no attention. After all, over the past few days, patrolling drones had become a normal part of life. But as the dragonfly drones flew closer and closer, the crowd finally realized something was terribly wrong. They saw the dozen or so drones, like falcons spotting prey, dove straight into the crowd in a steep dive. Seeing this, the Emperor's face instantly turned deathly pale. But Kaiaru, these drones seem to be coming for me. Immediately, he desperately scrambled into the car. However, just as most of his body had entered the vehicle, a dragonfly drone at the front had already reached the car. With a loud explosion, the Emperor's right leg was instantly blown off. Seeing this, the driver didn't hesitate for a second. He slammed on the gas, taking the severely injured Emperor and speeding away from the scene. But the swarm of dragonfly drones behind continued their relentless pursuit, and on the Emperor's shoulder, unnoticed by everyone, a tiny mosquito with red eyes was leisurely enjoying its feast. The next second, the familiar system prompt sounded once again. Byte successful. System error. Points increased by 1 million. Data corrupted. Congratulations, host. Unlocked miraculous talent. Dreamweaver Master. Meanwhile, Emperor attacked. News of the Emperor's attack was already trending online. Seeing this, Okubane Hikawa instantly felt like the sky was falling. He immediately dispatched armed forces to rescue the Emperor, while also urgently contacting Milligin, because the mosquito-eradicating dragonfly drones he sent were precisely controlled by Milligian's artificial intelligence. What are you doing? Our Emperor has been attacked by your drones. He's already lost a leg. Shut down your servers now. The American AI expert on duty was also speechless. How could this thing just be shut down like that? If the AI servers were shut down, it would mean that all our fields, military manufacturing, R&D, finance, even satellite orbit calculations, would be affected, would fall into temporary paralysis. The resulting economic losses simply couldn't be measured in numbers. At that moment, the director of the AI center also made a decision. It cannot be shut down, even if the Emperor were blown up. Our interests must not be harmed. Japan is just a lapdog we keep, and the Emperor is nothing but a puppet. As the expert on duty hung up the phone, the Emperor on the other end was utterly doomed. Every so often, a drone would catch up to the car and self-destruct. Even though the Emperor's vehicle was a specially modified bulletproof car, under the relentless explosions, it still developed cracks. Soon, the Emperor inside the car fell unconscious from the agony, and at that moment, the rescue forces for the Emperor finally arrived. Seeing this, I reluctantly flew out through the crack. However, I didn't rush to shake off these drones. Instead, I controlled my speed to keep them at a distance. Once the number of dragonfly drones reached a certain scale, I charged straight toward Huanggong. In an instant, countless laser beams shot toward me from all directions. But in the face of my Godspeed skill, this was nothing. The next second, I shot like a bolt of lightning straight into the gates of Huanggong. Gong, and the remaining dragonfly drones followed closely behind. With an earth-shattering explosion, the not-so-grand gates of Huang Gong were instantly blown open, leaving a huge hole. Seeing this, a determined light instantly ignited in my eyes, and I immediately spent 500,000 points to exchange for the beginner-level Hufush domain skill. This skill allows the user to release a massive amount of Hufush within a 500-meter radius, centered on themselves. It lasts for 7 days, and has a cooldown period of 3 months. As I arrived at the Huangdong Center, and activated the skill, an invisible ripple rapidly spread outwards from me. Instantly, the air throughout Huangdong began to heat up rapidly. Soon, the Emperor's intellectually disabled son was the first to collapse, followed by the other Huangshi members, who fell one after another. In less than 10 minutes, everyone's hair had completely fallen out. What's more, some even began to bleed black blood from their noses and mouths. Watching the Neon Hall members writhing in agony on the ground, I felt not a shred of pity. That's what you get for dumping that damn cola water. Now you understand the dangers of sunlight, don't you? News, Pinkwan Taiwan 1.2. Large-scale solar radiation incident. Neon Hall members suffer. News of Leihong members suffering heavy casualties. The story quickly made international headlines. The Hall members hastily formed a special task force. After a series of investigations by experts from various fields, an expert from the University of Tokyo shared his opinion. When the Dragonfly drone suddenly went rogue and pursued His Majesty the Emperor, America had every capability to shut down the system and stop it. Yet they chose to stand by and do nothing. And before Huangdong became a Hufush forbidden zone, the only entity that had attacked Huangdong was the Dragonfly drone. All this information points to one conclusion: America is the mastermind behind both of these disasters. With those words, the anger of the Japanese people instantly reached its peak. Thousands of protesters poured into the streets, shouting anti-American slogans, vowing to avenge the emperor. And just as the protests were spreading like wildfire, at that moment, I quietly made my way to Mount Fuji, ready to give the Japanese people another big gift. Not long after, the whole of Japan began to tremble faintly. Then, a plume of pitch-black smoke from the crater of Mount Fuji shot skyward. In just half a day, volcanic ash covered the entire Honshu Island. Fiery lava directly engulfed the surrounding towns. In an instant, news of Mount Fuji's eruption spread like a bombshell across the globe. At this time, the Pope of the Vatican even stepped forward proactively, claiming that Japan's recent series of disasters were all due to their wicked deeds. The fate of Japan is destined to be destruction. With this news, the entire nation of Japan fell into a state of panic. They began selling off their assets and fleeing abroad. I seized this opportunity to board a plane bound for the United States. However, I didn't follow the plane into the city. Instead, as it passed over Nevada desert, I chose to land directly. After all, the recent events in Japan had already caught America's attention. A major transportation hub, like an airport, would surely have mosquito eradication facilities prepared in advance. But just as I steadied my breath and prepared to head straight for the city, an extremely faint flash of light suddenly streaked across the night sky above me. What was that? Yet before I could even react, a violent explosion erupted behind me with a deafening roar. Terrifying high temperatures instantly enveloped me. I quickly struggled free and shot into the night sky. At this speed, could it be an air-to-air missile? One of these things costs millions of dollars. But just as I was marveling at how the states were sparing no expense, another missile homed in on my position. Seeing this, I didn't hesitate. My wings gave a powerful flap, and with lightning speed, I weaved through the desert sky. Catch me? In your dreams. I decisively spent 500,000 points to directly exchange for the absolute sonic speed talent. Then I abruptly accelerated, evading this missile's attack lock. But before I could even catch my breath, dozens more missiles came flying from all directions. My heart instantly sank. You gotta be kidding me. You're serious? At my current speed, dodging one missile is no problem, but there's no way I can escape from this wall-to-wall bombardment. To survive, the only way is to tank it. With no other incomprehensible choice. Audio, I could only grit my teeth and pull up the system interface. Incomprehensible audio. I exchanged for the high-grade fortified body. This skill can strengthen the body to become indestructible, allowing it to tank missiles with flesh alone. But I wasn't stupid enough to actually tank them. Getting bombarded by so many missiles in a row, I might just end up getting blasted stupid. So I accelerated with all my might, plunging my entire body deep into a sand dune. The next second, the deafening roar of dozens of missiles exploding shook heaven and earth. As the explosions gradually subsided, the desert had been blasted into a scarred and pitted wasteland. A moment later, I finally, slowly struggled out from the sand. Damn those sons of bitches in the States. They're way too ruthless. Good thing I reacted fast. But the instant I finished saying that, I suddenly sensed a shadow enveloping me from above. Looking up, it was actually a flight wing composed of 50 F-35 fighter jets. At that moment, I was completely dumbfounded. Holy crap, are you kidding me? The next moment, cluster bombs began raining down from the sky. Seeing this, all I could do was let out a cold, bitter laugh. If that's how it is, then I'll play along with you. With that, I immediately flapped my wings, and with my indestructible body, shot into the air. Like a dark bullet, I shot straight into the nearest F-35. The pilot didn't even have time to react before I instantly pierced through his aircraft. Then I immediately dove down to attack another fighter jet. In an instant, F-35s fell from the sky like paper. They burst into massive fireballs. When they saw the live feed from the satellite, the generals in the Pentagon were stunned. What the hell is this thing? It's just a tiny Mosquito. How can it withstand missiles and pierce an F-35's armor? Hearing this, Neon's father, General MacArthur, his eyes glinting coldly, turned to the others and said, "Initiate Plan 15. Meanwhile, on my end, having barely escaped, I didn't dare linger, stuck in this desert, in the middle of nowhere. I'm just a sitting duck, but if I can make it into a city, America won't dare to bomb me so recklessly." With that thought, I sped up, straining to reach the nearest city. Of course, along the way, America's air-to-air missiles never let up. Luckily, with my supersonic speed and enhanced body, I barely managed to withstand the relentless assault. But when I finally ran out of steam and arrived at the edge of Las Vegas, only to be shocked to find that the city, once brilliantly lit and teeming with people, had now become completely empty. It was like a ghost town. At that moment, my heart sounded the alarm. Something's wrong. This is clearly a trap to lure me in. Neely Jian has mobilized such immense manpower and resources to set this up. It looks like a kill box. Instantly, my mind started racing. Going back to the desert now is not an option. No cover. I'd just be a sitting duck. If I need to find cover, I could head for the mountains to the west. The terrain there is rugged, full of caves, but since even Las Vegas has been cleared out, the western mountains must already be ambushed. The only escape route left is up. I beat my wings and leaped, heading straight up towards the clouds. Seeing this, General Mai frowned deeply. What does this mean? Does this super creature really think that flying higher can help it evade our missile attacks? That's absurd. Our anti-air missiles have a ceiling over 50,000 meters and can reach 6 times the speed of sound. But as soon as he finished speaking, his eyes suddenly widened and he shouted, "Oh no! Activate the plasma barrier! Intercept it." By now, with my absolute sonic talent, I had reached 8 times the speed of sound. In the blink of an eye, I arrived at 100,000 meters, but the next second, I suddenly twisted my body and shot down like an arrow shot from a bow. The real way out isn't at the edge of the sky, it's in the earth beneath my feet. Although the Niwata Desert looks utterly desolate, beneath it lies a vast underground aquifer. The reason I shot up into the sky was because I needed a long enough distance to build up momentum. Only then could I pierce through the surface with overwhelming force, reaching the underground water veins. But just as I was approaching the ground, at 10 times the speed of sound, I suddenly slammed hard into an invisible barrier. Seeing this, I immediately thought to myself, this is bad. A plasma shield. Neely Jian actually brought out their trump card technology. At that moment, I suddenly felt an unprecedented pressure bearing down from above. I quickly looked up. I saw a blinding light, rapidly descending from high altitude. My heart sank. This energy isn't from a conventional missile. It's Harmony 5. Even with my current high-level enhancements and an indestructible physique, I still can't withstand Harmony 5's blast. If hit directly, I might not even leave a trace behind. I quickly calmed down and desperately searched my mind for a way out. Above me is the imminent Harmony 5. If I dare to break upwards, Neely Jian will dare to detonate it mid-air. Below is the invisible plasma barrier. I haven't explored the other directions yet, but Neely Jian must have already set up an impenetrable net. The situation is basically a guaranteed death trap. With no other choice, I could only place my last hope in the system. Sis, stop acting all aloof. I'm about to be gone. Isn't there any way to save me? As soon as I said that, the system's cold voice immediately echoed in my mind. Host detected. In a life or death crisis, temporarily activating. Gamble with your life function. Host can consume remaining lifespan to boost various attributes. Recommended various attributes. Hearing that, I didn't hesitate for a second. I chose to use it. Burning through my lifespan beats dying on the spot. Go for broke. Turn a bicycle into a motorcycle. The next instant, an unprecedented power surged into my body, and my entire body began to emit a crimson, bloody glow. A mosquito's lifespan is already just a few short weeks. At this rate of consumption, I can last a minute at most, so I stopped hesitating and immediately charged back into the air. Then I jerked around and slammed into the ground again, this time with the life wager boost to my stats, my speed directly reached 12 times the speed of sound. The immense air resistance instantly caused my whole body to burst into flames, with a deafening boom. Under the impact at 12 times the speed of sound, I finally broke through this invisible barrier. But I had absolutely no time to worry about my injuries. I continued with all my might to burrow underground into the desert. 100 meters, 200, 300. Right at that moment, the He-Woo above finally slammed heavily into the ground. Instantly, a massive mushroom cloud rose into the sky. A deafening roar shook the entire earth. Watching the screen, seeing the desert consumed by the flames, General Mike clenched his fists tightly. His eyes were filled with fervor. It's over. It's all over. Soon, the news that America had dropped a megaton He-Woo on the desert spread across the globe. Then, Chuan Weijian immediately held a press conference stating that the B-2 super mosquito ravaging Japan had been eliminated. However, they also paid a significant price just to evacuate the hundreds of thousands in Larasica. They disbursed over $500 million in relocation and subsidy funds, and this operation also lost 50 F-35 fighter jets, each costing around $200 million, totaling $10 billion. It consumed 200 advanced air-to-air missiles, each costing $20 million, totaling $4 billion, and the high-frequency electromagnetic field used to create the plasma barrier cost $2 billion. Furthermore, the final megaton nuclear bomb that was used, with its construction, maintenance, and launch costs, amounted to a staggering $20 billion. Just as everyone in America was celebrating this costly victory, deep underground in the Nevada desert, beside an underground water vein, a mosquito covered in blood slowly opened its eyes. The next second, that heart-stopping scene immediately flashed through my mind. Actually, when the nuke exploded, I didn't manage to escape the blast radius, but luckily, at the last moment, I had a sudden idea. I immediately released the previously exchanged nuclear radiation field skill. This skill creates a nuclear radiation field around oneself while also making one immune to nuclear radiation damage for 7 days. But even so, the world-ending explosions, shockwaves still severely injured me. I immediately opened the system and checked my status. When I saw on the data panel that I only had 3 days of lifespan left, a chill gradually gathered in my eyes. America, you just wait. Right at that moment, the familiar system notification sound suddenly rang in my ear. Congratulations, host, for resolving a fatal situation. Reward, 1 million points, and a new point acquisition method is unlocked. The host only needs to reduce America's overall strength to obtain a large amount of points. Upon hearing that, I immediately spent 800,000 points to exchange for the long-awaited zombie virus. Then, following the underground water veins at the fastest possible speed, I arrived at Jujinshan. Moving like a ghost, I darted through the streets and residential buildings. In just 2.5 hours, I had bitten over 1,000 people. As the sun rose the next day, the entire city of Jujinshan instantly echoed with horrifying screams. In no time, tens of thousands of zombies flooded the streets, biting anyone they saw. But what baffled everyone was, amidst this chaos, one group of people remained completely unharmed. They were the Chinese people residing in the United States. And all of that I was exchanging for the zombie virus. I spent an extra 200,000 points to add a clause: zombies cannot attack those with Chinese heritage. In just 1 day, the number of infected in Jujinshan had already exceeded 600,000. Once this happened, the United States immediately entered its highest state of alert. They dispatched a massive force to seal off the entire city of Jujinshan, preparing to carry out a full-scale eradication of the infected within. But against that endless tide of infected, conventional weapons simply weren't very effective. Soon, the military's casualty count surpassed 10,000. Seeing the situation about to spiral out of control, U.S. President Chuan Jiangwo didn't hesitate to activate the operation codenamed Scorched Earth, the combat plan. As a staggering 1.5 million tons of nuclear bombs fell, the entire city of Jujinshan instantly turned into a wasteland. Over 5 million people were directly reduced to ashes in the blast. Watching those innocent Chinese people perish in the explosion, my eyes instantly burned with furious flames. Because of this zombie crisis, Maligian's direct economic losses have already exceeded $30 trillion, and because of that, I gained 30 million points. Seeing that I had less than 2 days of life left, I didn't hesitate. I used my ultimate trump card, the divine skill, Realm of the Dead. This skill can forcibly inject the memories of the dead souls from the Jinshan incident into the dreams of all living people within the target area. Every single point can cover 1 square kilometer for 24 hours. When that eerie red light showered the earth, all the people of Maligian, in that very moment, fell into the same nightmare. In the dream, they became the innocent civilians from the Jinshan incident, personified personally experiencing the ultimate agony of being torn apart by zombies, or the endless despair of being vaporized by a habao in an instant. Time within the realm flows a million times faster than reality. Every second, they had to experience over 10,000 death cycles. As my last point was consumed, the people of Maligian, tortured for over 5,000 years, slowly awoke. Although they had left the dream, the fear repeatedly branded deep into their souls did not vanish. The first thing they did upon opening their eyes was to look at the people around them in terror, as if the next second they would turn into zombies and pounce. Suspicion and fear completely ignited. Neighbors turned on each other. Cities erupted in riots. The entire social order instantly collapsed. Looking at this chaotic scene, I too revealed a satisfied smile. At the same time, my life was also coming to an end. Everything before my eyes began to gradually darken. But right at that moment, a familiar voice suddenly rang in my ears. Congratulations, host. Faith points have exceeded 1 million. System upgraded to version 2.0. Lifespan exchange function unlocked. Every 10,000 faith points can be exchanged for 10 days of lifespan. Congratulations, host. Unlocked. A new way to earn points. Healing people will now earn you points. The higher the moral value of the person saved, the more points you'll get. Hearing this, I immediately spent all my faith points to exchange for 100 days of lifespan first. What the hell? Does the system have to play it so close to the edge? Speaking of which, above, what's the deal with this sudden surge of faith points? Host, due to your actions against Japan and the United States, many people in China now regard you as a deity. Some have even built altars to worship you. Upon hearing this, I was instantly filled with emotion. I never expected it was the people of China who gave me a second life. Now that healing people can earn me points, the first place I must go is my own homeland. Without hesitation, I snuck onto a plane bound for China. A little over 3 hours later, the plane landed in the capital. Looking at the familiar metropolis, I was filled with emotion. After a brief rest, I immediately headed to the capital's First People's Hospital. The hospital was packed with people. The corridors were crowded with patients and their families. The air was thick with anxiety and exhaustion. Nurses were busily shuttling between wards, with hardly any time to rest. Information about patients began appearing before my eyes. Wang Defy, age 48, moral value 35. Sun Guofu, age 62, moral value 68. Li Weijie, age 25, moral value 25. 60. Seeing this, I was speechless. What kind of people are these? Their morality is so low. The bad deeds they've done outnumber the good ones. But just as I was complaining, a golden information box suddenly appeared before my eyes. Name, Lin Feng, age 29. Condition, multiple gunshot wounds, internal organ rupture, severe infection. Estimated lifespan, 3 days. Morality, 100,000. Seeing this, I was stunned. 100,000 morality points. This is practically a walking halo of virtue. Immediately, I quietly hurried to his side. The moment I made contact with his body, a flood of memories instantly poured into my mind. It turns out this man was an undercover narcotics officer. Half a year ago, during the final takedown of a large transnational drug trafficking syndicate, his cover was unfortunately blown to cover his teammates and a key witness's retreat. He single-handedly drew away the main force of drug traffickers. Despite being shot multiple times, he stubbornly dragged his severely wounded body and held off dozens of drug traffickers for 3 hours until all his teammates and the witness were safely evacuated. But this caused him to miss the critical window for treatment. Although he was rescued, multiple internal organs were severely infected and ruptured. He's only being kept alive by machines. Seeing these images, my eyes instantly welled up. How can a hero like this just fall? Thinking this, I immediately began the treatment, but then the system suddenly popped up a prompt. Treatment failed. Host points insufficient. To fully recover him, requires 500,000 points. When I saw the price, I was completely stunned. System, are you crazy? How dare you ask for 500,000? The absolute tempo talent in the store only costs 500,000 points. But then the system calmly replied, this person's condition is critical. Current medical methods basically can't cure him. To make a full recovery would be defying fate itself, so this point price is reasonable. Hearing that, I fell silent. For a stranger with an unknown reward, I'd have to spend my 500,000 points? Even a dog wouldn't save him. But that's exactly who I'm saving, a stranger. If a dog won't, I will. I still have 20,000 points left, which can be my seed money. Earning 500,000 points in 3 days isn't impossible. Thinking this, I immediately opened the system store and directly exchanged for cure factors for colds, diarrhea, high blood sugar, and a series of other illnesses. Then, in an instant, I turned into a blurry afterimage, dashing through the hospital, from ward to ward. Meanwhile, over in the ENT consultation room, Dr. Wang was taking a patient's pulse, while asking the woman in front of him, what seems to be the problem? The woman was about to answer, when she suddenly frowned. That's strange. Just a moment ago, I had a stuffy nose and a sore throat. How did it suddenly get better? Then, somewhat awkwardly, she replied, Doctor, I don't think I'm sick. Hearing this, Dr. Wang was completely dumbfounded. Not sick? Then why did you come to the hospital? He then carefully checked the woman's pulse. The next second, he frowned slightly. Pulse is normal. She really isn't sick. You can go. Hearing this, the woman quickly apologized and left the consultation room. Dr. Wang, meanwhile, shook his head with a bitter smile. He muttered to himself, "This is really strange. Why have I run into several people like this today?" Little did they know, the same thing was happening in other departments of the hospital. As I continued my efforts, inpatients suffering from pancreatitis, gastric ulcers, and many other diseases also inexplicably experienced collective recoveries. In just 3 short days, over 3,000 people in the hospital were discharged, fully recovered. Among them were even 2 patients who had been diagnosed with early-stage cancer, and at that moment, my points finally reached 500,000, so I immediately went to Lin Feng's ICU room. As the superpowered healing agents slowly infused into him, the organs inside Lin Feng's body began to rapidly regenerate. When the nurse walked into the room the next morning, she was stunned. She saw Lin Feng, who was previously on death's door, was now actually working out by his bedside, and his body, once covered with gruesome gunshot wounds and surgical scars, was now completely healed. This series of medical miracles quickly caught the attention of higher-ups. A group of scientists and medical experts immediately convened a special meeting, but after discussing for a long time, they couldn't come up with a plausible explanation. Just as everyone was at a loss, a young medical doctor timidly spoke up. "Do you all remember the series of bizarre incidents recently in Japan and the US? They say the culprit was a mosquito." Hearing this, it was like a light bulb went off in their heads. Could it be that China also has a mosquito? Except the ones in Japan and the US were causing harm, while the one here in China is saving people. Thinking this, someone immediately shouted, "Quick, check the security footage." The staff immediately began a frame-by-frame review of the surveillance footage overnight. Sure enough, in the footage, they spotted a peculiar mosquito. It was larger than a normal mosquito by more than one size. Its eyes even glowed with an eerie red light. It was seen darting around between the major hospital wards and eventually arrived beside Lin Feng. And the next day, Lin Feng, who wasn't expected to live more than 3 days, miraculously recovered. The truth. Soon, major media outlets reported on the incident. Shocking, the truth behind the medical miracle was actually a red-eyed mosquito. Overnight, I became a mascot in the hearts of hundreds of millions of people. The public even began to reverently call me the Mosquito God. At the same time, various topics related to me once again surged to the top of international trending searches. Just as everyone was discussing the origin of the red-eyed mosquito, an official from a certain country suddenly stood up, claiming that this mosquito was actually their ancestor. He even produced a photo of their ancestors worshipping the Mosquito God. Seeing this news, I immediately laughed. All right, you'll steal anything, huh? Then let me, your ancestor, properly educate you, you unfilial descendants. Immediately, I crossed the ocean and arrived at Buji Island. This island is an uninhabited, ungoverned primitive island. Due to food shortages on the island, the residents often eat maggots, and the target of my trip was precisely these plump, meaty strips. I directly injected these maggots with a mixed healing factor. When these special maggots were consumed by the island's residents, men who suffered from premature ejaculation suddenly became mighty and robust, and those elderly women, over 50, even experienced rejuvenation, with skin so delicate it could be blown and popped. Soon, the Buji Island scam, the maggots cure-all scam, made headlines on the international trending charts. When they saw the figure of the Mosquito God in the footage, Korea's top officials immediately stepped forward once again. They declared that Buji Island was actually a territory bestowed upon them by the Mosquito God. They even fabricated a fake historical text claiming that the Mosquito God, in 10,000 BC, fought against the heavenly gods to save their ancestors, and that very place was Buji Island. Simultaneously, Korea also applied for UNESCO heritage status for these maggots, directly naming them Sumida maggots. As soon as this news broke, netizens worldwide started mocking them. You're so shameless. 10,000 BC, the Mosquito God protected you? You're so shameless. Why don't you just say, you Koreans evolved from maggots? The land of thieves lives up to its name. You can come up with any ridiculous thing to claim as heritage. However, the Korean officials, long accustomed to being criticized, didn't care at all. Instead, they immediately dispatched a research team to Buji Island. They collected a large quantity of Sumida maggots to bring back for cultivation. Witnessing this scene, I couldn't suppress my smirk. It was harder to control than an AK. It seems the real show is about to begin. Soon, with the full support of several chaebols like Samseong, the breeding research for Sumida maggots made significant progress. In just 2.5 months, they cultivated over 100 tons. Related products hit the market one after another. For a time, people across the nation rushed to buy them. To maximize the value of the Sumida maggots, the major chaebols spared no expense, hiring top-tier chefs to develop a state banquet-level dish, bursting Sumida maggots. Looking at the dish on the table, still faintly squirming, a glistening, translucent delicacy, Samseong Group's Lee JQ raised a toast celebrating that the Sunita, maggot breeding industry, was now taking shape. He believed Korea's economy would soon break into the world's top 10. Hearing this, the Asik Jituan, Chui Taiyuan sneered, the Semita maggot's beauty effects are excellent. If we can market it globally, it'll definitely attract female consumers worldwide. Within a year, we'll surpass China and the United States to become #1 in the world. Listening to these tycoons spouting their grand plans, I couldn't help but smirk. The dream is grand, but you probably won't live to see that day. Meanwhile, at the Blue House Estate, the Prime Minister and his wife were attending the annual Dragon Boat Festival event. Just as the First Lady's speech reached its climax, she noticed her hair was suddenly starting to fall out. In less than a minute, she was completely bald, and her originally fair, smooth skin had wrinkled up like an orange peel. Witnessing this, the Prime Minister was also stunned speechless. He quickly shouted, ordering the SWAT team to seal off the scene immediately. But as soon as he yelled, everyone froze in place. The Prime Minister's voice, since when did it become so effeminate? However, when everyone looked towards the sound, they were utterly dumbfounded. As the Prime Minister spoke, he unconsciously raised a limp wrist. He looked exactly like a total sissy. Soon, news of the Korean president turning into a sissy made international headlines. Netizens worldwide instantly went wild. Ha ha ha. They'll steal anything. Reaping serves them right. That country probably eats too much kimchi. Their brains must be pickled by now. This must be punishment from the Mosquito God. Meanwhile, many experts also conducted analysis and research on this. They ultimately found this maggot does have short-term, beautifying and health-boosting effects. However, long-term consumption has severe side effects. Men will secrete estrogen like crazy, becoming effeminate. Women, on the other hand, will experience severe hair loss and accelerated aging. Moreover, the higher the product's purity, the faster these side effects manifest. Once this news broke, the citizens of Korea instantly panicked, taking to the streets to demand an explanation from their leaders. Soon, the once dominant for major corporations completely vanished. In just 1 month, Korea's economy rapidly collapsed. The once bustling fashion streets were now populated only by effeminate men and bald women. Korea was also dubbed by netizens as the capital of sissies and the capital of the bald. Just as I was feeling satisfied with my masterpiece, the next piece of news instantly filled me with rage. A pure female college student, just finished with night classes, went out to buy a late-night snack. Yet, in the middle of the night, in plain sight, she was forcibly abducted by 4 Indian tourists. They not only assaulted the girl, but also filmed the entire process, posting it online to flaunt it shamelessly. Unable to bear the humiliation and cyberbullying, the girl ultimately jumped from the roof of a teaching building, ending her own life. However, among the 4 perpetrators, the ringleader, Sabe, remains at large to this day, while the other 3 have only just been apprehended. However, the authorities publicly stated Sabe is the only son of the Indian defense minister and enjoys diplomatic immunity. As regardless of the circumstances, only the filming country can conduct the trial. No other country has the authority to arrest him. He can only be repatriated to be tried by India itself. When I learned of this, I lost it. These Indians must die. Inside the city's detention center, the 3 men who were arrested showed not a shred of remorse. Facing the victim's father, their 3 ugly faces even wore a mocking grin. Seeing this, I was instantly enraged. Immediately, I transformed into a ghostly afterimage and flew into the cell. I injected a specially crafted victim's nightmare into their bodies. This hallucinogenic poison causes no physical harm, but it traps their minds in an endless loop. They will experience, over and over, from the victim girl's perspective, the entire ordeal of being abducted, assaulted, to the final, desperate fall from the building. They will feel all of her fear, pain, and helplessness. However, these 3 men's minds simply could not withstand this never-ending torment. After just 2.5 days, when the guards made their rounds, they found 2 of them had already bashed their heads against the wall, their faces frozen in utter terror. The remaining one was curled in a corner, holding his head and screaming non-stop, completely insane. When Sabi heard the news, he panicked. He rushed to the nearest police station to turn himself in, demanding to be deported back to his home country immediately. Upon learning Sabi was back, a few of his so-called friends showed up right away. They brought lavish food and beautiful women to celebrate. Brother, don't be afraid. Since you're back, you're basically in the clear. To appease China, you'll get a symbolic sentence at most. Hearing this, another short guy immediately thumped his chest and promised, my dad's the warden. We'll pull some strings, and you'll serve your time in the prison. My dad manages. I guarantee you'll eat and drink like a king. With that, they started their wild party. In the following days, he lay in the hospital bed, watching helplessly as his body began to rot and stink from the wound, until it spread throughout his entire body. Finally, amidst a foul stench and endless regret, in extreme agony, he breathed his last. Soon, an investigative report was urgently delivered to Sabi's father, who was the defense minister of Arth. When he saw the red-eyed mosquito in the surveillance footage, he flew into a rage instantly. He immediately ordered the military to dispatch 10 Tejas fighter jets, preparing to charge into Zongwajia and hunt down this red-eyed mosquito. However, these 10 fighter jets hadn't even reached Zongwajia's border before 7 of them, due to unexplained technical malfunctions, began performing a bizarre Brownian motion in the air, then spiraled out of control and crashed. The remaining 3 were scared out of their wits, their aircraft leaking oil like crazy. They could only retreat in disgrace. Yet, upon learning the news, Sabi's father chose to conceal the defeat. Instead, he loudly proclaimed that Arth, with just 3 fighter jets, had easily eliminated Zongwajia's so-called Mosquito God. He even declared a 10-day national holiday to celebrate. Once the news broke, many Arth citizens immediately started boasting online. Some Mosquito God. What kind of thing is a Mosquito God? The neighboring country is a clown, actually worshipping a mosquito as a god. Utterly ridiculous. Seeing this, I could only shake my head and laugh at Arth. It seems your good days are coming to an end. Good days are coming to an end. Right then, I traveled overnight to Zongwajia and entered the bedroom of a certain high-ranking official. On his bedside, I left a green leaf inscribed with 5 bloody characters. From Arth, withdraw from the bridge. When he woke up the next morning and saw the words on the leaf, his heart jolted violently. Could this be a decree from the Mosquito God? After a day of urgent discussions among the top brass, Zhonghua decisively announced a withdrawal from Asan. Instantly, Zhonghua's tourists, students abroad, and officials began returning home. Witnessing this, Asan's leadership was stunned. What exactly was Zhonghua planning? You can talk trash online, but in reality, you wouldn't actually dare to act, right? They immediately called an emergency meeting to analyze the motives behind Zhonghua's withdrawal. But just as the meeting reached its climax, the defense minister suddenly felt a rumble in his stomach. Before he could react, right in front of all the Asan officials, he gave a live performance. Instantly, a strange odor filled the conference room. He thought it was from drinking too much Ganges water lately, but after seeing all of Asan's top doctors, he found this strange illness couldn't be cured by medical means, and as time went on, his condition worsened. If he dared eat anything, within 10 minutes, he'd involuntarily expel it. You could say, wherever he went, he left a deposit. Soon, this strange illness began spreading nationwide. More and more people showed the same symptoms. Suddenly, whether at home, school, or the office, or even on the streets, piles of excrement accumulated. Asan instantly became a nation of feces. When this news broke, countries that had previously had issues with Zhonghua panicked. They began speculating which country would be next to receive the Mosquito God's divine punishment. And as the one behind all this, the instigator, I am comfortably perched on a windowsill of a house, using the light from a computer screen, watching with great interest the panic and wailing on the global network. The title Mosquito God has now resounded across the globe. Looking at the system panel, due to the India incident, the points have surged again, and the faith value already surpassed by the Chinese people the 1 million mark. I flapped my wings with satisfaction. These faith values can not only be exchanged for lifespan, but also become my most solid confidence. Just as I was enjoying the thrill of controlling everything from behind the scenes, considering which ungrateful country should make the next hot search, a bold international news headline popped up, instantly catching my attention. The British Museum will hold its annual auction, with many lost national treasures of China listed among them. My heart tightened, and I immediately clicked on it. In the news picture, there is an exquisitely beautiful Tang tricolored pottery camel with musicians. The colors are bright and vivid, lifelike, and below is an estimated price of £8 million. This is the valuation. My anger flared up instantly. What made me even more furious was the interview content of the news. A museum director named Bushkaman, with a Mediterranean hairstyle, was talking eloquently to the camera. We are very happy to provide the best home for these great artworks. Art belongs to the whole world. Keeping them on a broader platform for display is far more meaningful than confining them in some distant country. This is a contribution to all human civilization. Silently, it landed on the wrist. Holding his teacup, the specially made forced confession virus was injected into his body. The next day, a grand pre-auction gala was held at the museum. Bushkaman, as the curator, strutted onto the stage, beaming with pride, ready to deliver his tired old spiel about art belonging to the world. He cleared his throat and began, "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Great Museum." But the next second, his mouth completely lost control. In an excited, shrill tone, he continued, "Welcome to my personal loot exhibition. Half the items up for auction tonight are fakes I swapped in. That Tang Dynasty tricolored pottery? Fake. The real one's in my basement. That blue on white porcelain vase, that sold for £3 million last time? Also fake. Cost me 5,000. Thanks for your generosity. Oh, And by the way, I'd like to thank all sectors of society for their donations to the Great Inn Museum. Without you idiots, how could I afford my mansions and sports cars? How could I support 18 mistresses? After a moment of dead silence, the room erupted into an uproar. Camera flashes went wild. Reporters rushed toward the stage. On stage, Bushkaman was weeping uncontrollably. His body and will were locked in a fierce struggle, but his mouth, like a separate part, was still trying to say more. Finally, security rushed up and clamped a hand over his mouth, dragging him off like a limp dog. Watching this farce that I had directed, I knew Bushkaman and this museum's credibility were completely finished. But that was just the beginning. I flew over Fog City and pushed the power of the Lord of all insects to its absolute limit. Overnight, the entire ecosystem of Little Britain was plunged into a bizarre and total restructuring. In the southern farms, a farmer stared in disbelief as his prized golden wheat fields were devoured completely by swarms of locusts and weevils in just a few short hours, leaving only a mess of stalks behind. At Fog City's largest meat market, butchers screamed in terror. The steaks and lamb legs that were hanging just moments ago were instantly blanketed by endless green and flesh flies. The entire market was instantly filled with a foul, rotting stench. On the fishing grounds of the North Sea, the most experienced fishing boat captain stared intently at his sonar screen. The once dense signals of fish schools on the screen seemed to have been spooked by something and were collectively migrating towards the deep sea at an incredible speed. The nets they cast hauled up nothing but seaweed and a kind of never-before-seen aquatic beetle that was madly gnawing at the nets. Grain, meat, fish, all conventional food sources were precisely and utterly destroyed. Within 24 hours, Little Britain was plunged into an unprecedented food crisis. Yet, just as everyone was despairing over what to eat, they discovered in horror that another kind of food was experiencing an explosive boom. Plump earthworms writhed in the soil, 10 times more numerous than before. Under rotting logs, plump, juicy mealworms swarmed densely. Among the grass, crisp, green grasshoppers were everywhere. To survive, Little Britain's chefs were forced to tap into their already feeble creativity, launching a nationwide renaissance of dark cuisine. BBC's Food Channel, the famous Hell's Kitchen chef, Jam, on tasting what's happening, looks ashen-faced right now, speaking to the camera in a trembling voice. Introducing today's dish. Today, we're making a classic famous dish, fried locusts with mint sauce. In the pubs of the Foggy City, patrons can no longer get fish and chips. Instead, what's served are plates of toasted mealworms with vinegar. People expressionlessly stuff the golden brown bugs into their mouths. With a loud crunch, their eyes are empty, as if they're performing some mysterious summoning ritual. But the most astonishing thing is undoubtedly that famous dish, stargazy pie, with no fish available. A genius chef has modified it, using plump earthworms that poke out from the pie crust, their heads held high, as if truly gazing up at that perpetually overcast sky. The news that all of Little Britain has entered the age of eating bugs, accompanied by one nauseating food picture after another, instantly went viral worldwide, becoming the biggest joke of the century. Netizens from various countries photoshopped the cross on Little Britain's flag into spiders and centipedes and shapes of various bugs. The entire nation is frantically struggling on the edge of endless hunger, protein, allergies, and mental breakdown. And I, the one who started it all, am leisurely watching all this. Just then, a new international news alert popped up. Gaul and Italy issued a joint statement condemning any form of eco-terrorism and announced they will enhance security levels at major museums. Looking at the screen showing the President of France and the Prime Minister of Italy shaking hands, I let out a cold laugh. If they don't rob, they're not French. If they don't steal, they're not Italian. Good. Line up. You're next. I didn't waste a single moment. That very night, I boarded a cargo plane from London, bound for Paris. When I arrived in Paris, it was the dead of night. I saw online that, first thing tomorrow morning, Paris's public transport system would launch a new round of major strikes. The reason? Their work hours were too long, affecting their enjoyment of life. I hovered at the top of the Eiffel Tower, overlooking this city of both slumber and noise. A perfect plan took shape in my mind. I opened the system store and quickly browsed through it. Physical attacks are too boring. Economic collapse isn't artistic enough. To deal with the French, you have to strike at their spirit. Soon, a brand new virus caught my eye, the inertia withering virus. In the temple of yes, those infected by this virus will lose all desire to work and motivation to move forward, sinking into an extremely lazy, vegetative state, content with only the bare minimum for survival. In simpler terms, it's the ultimate laziness. This is the one. My first target was the French president's official residence. The security here is considered world-class. Infrared and microwave detectors, high-voltage electric fences, the works. But before me, a mosquito with a steel body, and absolute speed. These are all useless. I easily found a ventilation shaft, and silently slipped inside. The president was currently in his study, pulling his hair out over Little Britain's insect plague and the upcoming strikes at home. Pulling his hair out. I landed precisely on the back of his hand as he rubbed his temple. A gentle prick. First one down. Without a moment's pause, I headed straight for the University of Paris. This is the cradle of Gaul's top scientists. Inside a brightly lit laboratory, a Nobel Prize-winning physicist was conducting a crucial experiment on nuclear fusion. I landed on his neck and delivered my blessing. Next, I paid a visit to an exclusive private club near the Élysée Palace. Several financial titans who control Gaul's economic lifeline were puffing away on cigars like an elegant assassin. I left a barely visible red dot on each of them. Finally, I arrived at the headquarters of the General Confederation of Labor. The union leader, known for his sharp tongue and tough stance, was passionately laying out tomorrow's strike details over the phone. On his arm, I delivered the final strike. With all that done, I found myself a comfortable corner and waited quietly for the show to begin. The next day, the virus's effects started to show. At an emergency cabinet meeting about how to handle the Little Britain crisis, the president yawned, his gaze spaced out as he looked at the blue sky outside. He suddenly spoke up. I think the weather's nice today. Let's adjourn. We can deal with these things tomorrow. The ministers, including the finance and defense ministers, whom I had also visited, all nodded in agreement, praising his wisdom. That's right. Time to relax a bit. And so, the entire highest power center of Gaul happily decided to collectively play hooky for afternoon tea. Meanwhile, on the other side of the city, inside the nuclear physics lab, the Nobel laureate was about to record some crucial data. He suddenly stopped writing, staring blankly at the flickering particle trajectories on the screen. He muttered to himself, "Sigh, this is so boring. What's the point of studying this stuff? Might as well go feed pigeons in the park." With that, he resolutely shut down the billion-euro experimental equipment, hummed a tune, and left work early. Balishan Quanjiaui Sua plummeted as soon as the market opened. In the offices of several financial tycoons, the phones were ringing off the hook, but they themselves were leisurely, sipping red wine on the balcony, watching the traffic below, with serene and content smiles on their faces. One of them looked at the billions of euros that had vanished from his account, and simply smiled faintly. Money is just an external thing. The most dramatic scene unfolded at the General Labor Union. Scheduled to begin at 9 a.m., the massive, nationwide bus system strike showed no signs of starting. Reporters waited anxiously in the empty assembly square, their eyes straining. Meanwhile, the union leader who should have been rallying the crowds was lying on his couch at home, covered with a blanket, watching boring TV shows. He sent a text to his deputy. "Too tired today. Don't feel like moving. Strike is cancelled. We'll talk next year." With the collective lying flat of the nation's brains, the social development engine of the entire Gallic country came to a screeching halt. Innovation stalled. The stock market crashed. The economy continued to decline. In a gentle manner, the entire country seemed to have been put on 0.5x slow motion. The streets were still bustling with people, but everyone was moving slowly, with lazy expressions. The passion and romance that once filled the air had been replaced by a pervasive weariness and contentment. Yet, just as everyone was puzzled by this strange collective lethargy, a secret report from the Rishi Intelligence Department was delivered to the Élysée Palace. In the report, a low-level analyst who remained uninfected wrote with a trembling hand, his speculation, the insect plague in Little Britain, and the lethargy disease among Gaul's elite, both pointed to the same source, that mysterious creature, dubbed by the global network as the Mosquito God. The report landed on the president's desk. Mr. President struggled to open his sleepy eyes. He picked up the report, glanced at it, and then yawned again. Mosquito God. Sounds like a hassle, he muttered to himself. The defense minister beside him was dozing off on the sofa. Hearing this, he lazily lifted an eyelid. Resist? That would require mobilizing the army, formulating strategies, holding countless meetings. Just thinking about it is exhausting. The finance minister was calculating the cost of a counterattack. Halfway through, he irritably tossed his pen aside. It would cost so much money. Forget it. I'd rather spend it on a new recliner. Amidst the silence, Mr. President suddenly had a flash of inspiration. Summoning all his strength, he proposed a suggestion that perked everyone up. Since resisting is such a hassle, why don't we just surrender? This proposal was like music to their ears, instantly brightening the entire room. Yeah, surrender. That's a good one. If we surrender, we don't have to worry about anything. I agree. Hurry up. Let's get the paperwork done so I can go back for a nap. Driven by the great goal of getting off work as soon as possible, the government of Gaul erupted with unprecedented efficiency. No arguments, no red tape. Everyone was striving to lie flat a little earlier. Half an hour later, the official Twitter account of the Gaulish presidential office posted a tweet that shocked the world. The moment this tweet went out, servers worldwide froze for 3 seconds. Net Netizens around the globe went crazy. Oh my god, they surrendered already? Without even putting up a fight? Classic Gaul. No one surrenders faster. I just brewed a pot of tea to watch the drama unfold, and the show's already over. The hashtag Gaul surrenders at lightspeed instantly topped global trending charts. Its popularity even surpassed Britain's eating bugs. Gaul, in the most absurd and swift manner possible, became the laughingstock of the entire world. I know that to deal with Italians, you have to start with what they are most proud of. Their food. First, I conducted some field research in Roma, getting a feel for the place. I saw pizza shop owners on every street corner, arguing over the fermentation of the crust and the simmering time of the tomato sauce. They just wouldn't stop. On online forums, I saw that a mere suggestion to add cream to pasta sparked hundreds of pages of insults and a whole chain of disdain. And at the very top of their food chain of disdain, the absolute, untouchable, taboo, is pineapple pizza. Perfect. Your fate is now in my hands. I opened the system mall, exchanged for a taste-altering virus, and set it so that for those infected, the only thing that tastes good is pineapple. Next up, large-scale dissemination. First, I flew to Tuscany and injected the virus into the water sources of some of the most famous olive oil estates and wineries. Then I headed north to the Parma region, letting the virus permeate the very air. Finally, I flew back to Roma and Milan, visited the kitchens of over a dozen Michelin 3-star restaurants, and left my mark on the nation's top chefs and food critics. With all that done, I waited like an artist, awaiting the completion of a painting, anticipating the opening of this grand taste catastrophe. Soon, Italy's nightmare began. In a century-old shop in Roma, the most respected pizza master proudly took a bite of a freshly baked pizza, part of his daily routine. The next second, his face twisted in disgust, and he spat out the pizza, as if he had bitten into something poisonous. No, that's impossible. He stares in horror at the perfect pizza. Why is the tomato sauce bitter? The basil tastes like rust. My god, this cheese tastes like a piece of crap. The same scene plays out across the country. At a top restaurant in Milan, a well-dressed food critic takes one bite of truffle risotto and vomits on the spot. He claims the chef served him a plate of spoiled rice mixed with dirt. In Naples, an ordinary family, the mother cries as she watches her own child dump all her carefully stewed pasta sauce. The kids scream. Suddenly, a collective panic over taste loss sweeps through Italy. ENT clinics are packed, but all the test results come back normal. People despair as they find all the food they were proud of, from the finest Parma ham to street corner gelato, has become torture for their taste buds. The entire nation descends into a chorus of wails, just as everyone thought they'd be trapped forever in a tasteless hell. A turning point arrived in the most dramatic way. Outside the Roman Colosseum, a tourist from Hawaii is innocently eating his packed lunch, a slice of what locals consider a culinary abomination, Hawaiian pineapple pizza. Beside him, a pale Italian guy, who hasn't eaten in 2 days, catches a whiff of a scent he's never smelled before, like heaven itself. Compelled, he rushes over, and, to the tourist's shock, snatches a slice of pizza, and shoves it into his mouth. In that instant, the young man's eyes widened in shock. That sweet and sour pineapple in his mouth seemed to explode like the sun, bringing an unprecedented sense of happiness and satisfaction. That damn ham and ketchup, against the backdrop of the pineapple, became a tolerable background element. Delicious, so delicious. Tears streamed down his face. He let out a hysterical scream. This video was recorded by a passerby and uploaded online. Instantly, it blew up across Italy. People, half in doubt, rushed into supermarkets to buy the canned pineapple they had always despised the most. When the first bite of pineapple flesh entered their mouths, everyone cried. This was redemption. This was the one true delicacy. Soon, the entire nation discovered that only food containing pineapple could let them taste real flavor. And so, a complete and utter culinary upheaval began. On every pizzeria's menu, only one choice remained: Hawaiian pineapple pizza. People lined up in long queues, like pilgrims, just to buy a slice of the food they had once scorned. Restaurants introduced pineapple pasta, pineapple risotto, grilled pineapple with steak. Every dish had to include pineapple, otherwise, it was simply inedible. This was total psychological devastation. Italians were forced to abandon their 1,000-year-old culinary traditions. Every day, in pain and conflict, they worshipped pineapple as a deity. The Sicilian mafia plashed over the last case of imported pineapple, leaving 3 seriously injured. This news even made international headlines, showing the whole world the climax of this absurd drama, and I was just kicking back, watching it all. This traveling show targeting the descendants of bandits has once again landed me in the eye of the global media storm. This time, people's reactions are no longer just fear and speculation. Instead, it's evolved into a wild, global online discussion. My codename, Mosquito God, became the hottest hashtag on the internet worldwide. Looking at all these wild comments, I perched on the windowsill, contentedly wiggling my 6 legs, This feeling of being discussed with awe, and even worshipped by the whole world, is definitely way more satisfying than just plain killing. Just as I was basking in this feeling of invincibility, refreshing the domestic trending topics back in the homeland, to see how my compatriots were creatively praising me this time, a trending tag marked explosive in blood red instantly stunned my eyes. Scam compounds in northern Myanmar exposed for more atrocities. Video surfaces of a citizen from the homeland being beaten. I clicked on it. The video footage was shaking violently. The background noise was an incomprehensible dialect, and a piercing electrical crackle. The camera was focused on a young man beaten black and blue. He was tied to a chair. A man with a brutish face was holding a stun baton, grinning as he jabbed it into the young man's side. ZZZZT. The young man's whole body convulsed violently. His body arched from the intense pain, like a shrimp. Beneath the video were countless furious comments. My younger brother was tricked into going there. He's been missing for 3 months now. Please, our country must save them. These scam compounds are a living hell. Why is there no one who can stop them? An indescribable rage surged from the depths of my heart. I fought Japan because of a blood feud, but now, a mere backwater that survives by swindling and cheating. A bunch of low-life scammers dare to harm my fellow countrymen like this? I'm undefeated across the world. You pathetic weaklings dare to touch citizens of my homeland? Fine. I vanished from the windowsill in an instant, moving faster than the speed of sound. I headed straight for the southwestern border of my homeland. This time, I won't just punish, I will also save people. In just 1 hour, I crossed thousands of kilometers. I arrived at the infamous northern Myanmar. I pinpointed the local largest scam compound. On the surface, it's rows of modern office buildings, but in reality, it's a heavily guarded den of evil. High walls, electric fences, guards with AKs, and those inside the buildings, treated like livestock, exploited and beaten. The piglets, hovering high above, my cold gaze swept across the entire compound. Your revelry ends here. I opened the system store. Without a moment's hesitation, I directly customized, for this group of villains before me, a brand new composite virus. For the small-time bosses and their thugs, the virus will trap them in a compulsive generosity loop. They'll be irresistibly compelled to give away all their ill-gotten gains to ease their conscience. But for the head of the compound, Bu Shuren, I've prepared a unique blood debt repayment version. This virus will make him repay, not with money, but for every single blood debt he owes. I transformed into a black bolt of lightning, and first visited Bu Shuren's office. He was smugly leaning back in his boss chair. I landed silently on his fat neck. I injected the entire dose of the special blood debt repayment virus. Then, like a gust of wind, I swept through every building in the compound, delivering the standard compulsive generosity virus to everyone inside the compound. All the bosses, big and small, the thugs, and the local corrupt officials, who shared in the spoils. After finishing all this, I hid in the darkness, waiting for this grand charity show to begin. The next day, the entire northern Myanmar region went crazy. Thugs who were vicious just yesterday suddenly rushed into the streets today, carrying boxes of money, kneeling before anyone they saw, crying and begging, pleading for them to take their money, constantly saying, "I'm guilty. I've sinned. I shouldn't have hurt people. Please, take it. Otherwise, I feel unbearably awful." Those scam bosses who lorded it over everyone daily, all turned into money-giving fairies. They hauled out all the cash, hidden under beds and in safes, driving along the streets, tossing it out. Some even stormed into banks, demanding to transfer all their savings to a random lucky person. "I don't want it. This money is too dirty. Whoever wants it, take it." They sold off their luxury cars and mansions, piled the money at the entrance of the compound, then knelt on the ground, weeping and kowtowing towards China. The entire scam industry chain collapsed instantly because the ringleaders collectively found their conscience. Not only did they give away all their wealth, but to seek inner peace, they rushed to the local police station to turn themselves in, and to fight for leniency, they frantically ratted out their accomplices and protectors. The local police station experienced for the first time what performance pressure felt like. The interrogation rooms were full. The detention center was packed. However, at the center of this chaos, in the top floor CEO's office, the most blood-curdling screams were heard. The compound's ringleader, Bu Shuren, had also gone mad, but his symptoms were completely different from the others. The only thought in his mind wasn't to give away money, but to repay his debts. He could see countless wronged souls he had persecuted to death, reaching out with bloody hands, demanding compensation from him. "Stay back. I'll pay you back." His eyes bloodshot, he roared. He grabbed a stack of dollar bills from the desk, and shoved them into his mouth, chewing frantically, as if that could cleanse the sin of money. But it wasn't nearly enough. The wronged souls in his eyes started pointing at his body. "You had my hand broken. Give it back." A phantom roared. As if receiving a command, Bu Shuren grabbed a cigar cutter from the desk, and with a snap, cut off his own left pinky finger. The agony made him scream, but that inner urge to repay the debt brought a bizarre sense of satisfaction. "My eyes, you had them gouged out." Another phantom appeared. He then used a pen to viciously stab his own eye. When the compound's main gate was overrun by the completely out-of-control crowd, people only saw a man covered in blood, sitting on the ground. He was muttering, "I'll give it back. I'll give it all back." back. Dealing with those criminals wasn't the end of my mission. I went to the lowest level prison in the compound. Held here were over 100 deceived Zhonghua citizens. They were pale and emaciated, their eyes vacant, their bodies covered in scars. I injected the compulsory generosity virus into the guards, their last batch of enforcers. These enforcers immediately acted as if a switch had been flipped. They opened all the cell doors, knelt on the ground, and toward these prisoners, they started kneeling and kowtowing, weeping and apologizing. Then, as if receiving a divine command, they generously gave all their own food and water to these victims. Then they formed the world's most bizarre escort team. They escorted these 100+ compatriots as they marched in a grand procession toward the Zhonghua border crossing. When the Zhonghua border police saw this scene, everyone was stunned. They saw over 100 ragged compatriots being escorted by a group of armed men holding AKs, yet docile as sheep. They crossed the border in an orderly fashion. After delivering the people, the armed men simultaneously threw down their weapons, knelt on the ground, and put their hands behind their heads. They kept shouting in broken Zhonghua, "Officers, we surrender. We're guilty. Arrest us." Only after confirming all our compatriots were safely received did I quietly slip away. I've returned to my homeland, back to the land I swore to protect with my life. I didn't go back to the hospital, nor did I seek out new targets. I simply transformed into the most ordinary mosquito and landed on the windowsill of an ordinary home. Outside the window, the city's countless lights and bustling traffic stretched out. A young couple was pushing a stroller on a walk downstairs. Their faces were radiant with happy smiles. I watched it all. The astronomical figures of points and faith in the system seemed to lose all meaning in this moment. After destruction comes protection. Perhaps this is the Mosquito God's ultimate mission. I reigned in all my aura, lying there quietly, as if merging into this tranquil night. But I know that as long as on this planet injustice and evil remain, as long as our people suffer overseas, this seemingly dormant mosquito will open again at any moment. Those blood-red eyes, my journey may have come to a temporary end, but my gaze is already fixed on more distant stars.